Hello and welcome to Everything's Fine, probably your weekly antidote to bad news, existential dread, and Piers Morgan still somehow having a platform. Coming up this week, the Chancellor cries and half the media reacts like she punched a corgi. Swiss trains go solar, Copepods go carbon neutral, and pandas go through whatever pandas go through. And science finds a way to restore hearing, which might end up being a bit pointless because we've all stopped listening anyway. So let's find out what's actually been going right for once, shall we? I'm joined by Shelley and Stu. Welcome both. You all right?
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Well, last week,
Mm-hmm.
we had the very wonderful Tom Oxley on, talking about mental health at work, talking about the benefits of making ourselves a bit vulnerable, talking about how crying can be beneficial. And would you believe the very next day, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, cried in the Commons, which sparked, I think, some interesting reactions. Shelley, you've been looking at this one a bit.
Yeah, I thought I couldn't really leave this alone. It's just because it was like, well, we've just been talking about mental well-being at work, and yeah, it's almost like I like to think that we've been listened to, and it gave her permission to just sort of let her feelings out. But
I'm not sure all of the media saw it that way.
No, I mean, this seems to have opened up debate in the media, as you can imagine, the kind of like Jeremy Vine debates that were going on, and it was all just about whether it was an appropriate thing to do. I'm holding back on my own thoughts and opinions on this at the moment, but I thought really what would be quite a good place to start is actually just looking at what people really thought. So obviously going to where the most intellectual people tend to share thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I went onto social media just to sort of see what people were saying. These were my best comments, I think, I found, that just sort of picked up all these different sides of the argument. One was, I don't understand why someone crying is a big deal. We all have emotions. There is no law against it, and not at least a law in the House of Commons. And then someone else said, if it was that bad, she should have stayed away from the public eye. You can't behave like that in such a prominent position. So behaviour, it was a behaviour issue there for somebody. Someone else, though, actually said about how she'd kind of been let down by her bosses. So they said she was clearly very upset about something, but was forced to go in and do her normal job. Her bosses shouldn't have put her in that position. My absolute favourite comment, though, you wouldn't have caught the Queen behaving like that. That's it.
Really got me. Not the fact that she cried. The fact she didn't weep, she didn't sob, she just cried quietly.
Yeah,
Just for a moment.
It sort of
You'd
just
think
seemed
she'd slapped the king, wouldn't you?
it just sort of I sort of felt everybody's opinions on it that kind of did just come down to three main groups of opinions. It was one, people just black and white. It wasn't acceptable. She shouldn't have done it. It was unprofessional of her. Then other people saying, I don't really know why we're making such a fuss about this. It's just somebody having a bad day at work and crying, it shouldn't be a big deal. Whereas other people were saying, is there some sort of toxic work environment and she was put into a situation that she shouldn't have been put into? So I thought it was very interesting, just people's different angles. And I suppose you can pick up who the empaths are.
But I mean, it was quite the week, wasn't it? So there was a lot of pressure. Obviously, the government U-turned, didn't they, on what they were going to do with the cuts to the disability allowance and so on and so forth. She had obviously earmarked that money, part of the budget going forward. So they then turned it in, didn't they? They then said it was a personal matter. So, yeah, so that was kind of all right. So we'll leave it alone. But I guess the people who said, in your comments there, it's not very professional. She is the Chancellor, isn't she? And, unfortunately, the markets do play a massive part, don't they? And, people can lose confidence in the Chancellor. interestingly enough, the markets rebounded as soon as she said she was fine, and as soon as Keir Starmer actually backed her.
I think the mad part about this is the idea that just because somebody sheds a couple of tears, that everybody needs to lose their head over it. I mean, as you said, the Mail called it unprofessional. Piers Morgan reappeared like black mold to demand equal ridicule for male tears. So seriously, that pathetic piece of human excrement
There was
recently
definitely
to
some,
us why we weren't mocking her like we mocked Matt Hancock for crying on camera.
but there was definitely some misogyny about it as well, though,
Oh,
wasn't there? That
hugely.
kind of, oh well,
The
yeah.
nice bit is apparently 78% of the British public said quite reasonably, yeah, crying at work's fine, actually. I mean, not Telegraph readers. They took the time out from polishing their Victorian monocles to pen letters about the sanctity of British emotional repression.
I think the piece there, which slightly concerns me, we've all been team leaders and managers, that no one just saw her like that and just said, "Come on, let's go, let's take you out of that situation," because
Yeah.
that could have been done, couldn't it? That's the bit that kind of I thought was, I don't know, not very human, really.
No, but I think this all connects up. This not very human bit is this British obsession with the stiff upper lip, that national religion that says that silent suffering is some sort of virtue. And if you show emotion, you're weak.
Mm.
Push it down, and you're prime minister material. And that's how we end up with leaders who look like they've been carved from damn poke.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
I think I
emotionally
think,
constipated, allergic to vulnerability, deeply
but
committed to the idea of true leadership, never flinching, never feeling, and certainly never crying.
but I think you can see Parliament is a toxic scenario, isn't it? A situation, and people go into politics for the right reasons, don't they? But you've got to be pretty robust and pretty tough to survive, haven't you, in British politics these days? So,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
it's a brutal environment. I think anyone in the public eye is, but I think we also need to be very careful here about not so much about Rachel Reeves crying, but about some of these reactions to it. Because I mean, you had people saying it's unprofessional. You had Julia Hartley Brewer actually saying man up. Now that
right,
idea it's not just outdated, it's
yeah,
dangerous.
yeah,
It's
Mm.
it's not great to repress your emotions. It might look noble, but we know it wrecks mental health. It makes us sick. It makes us burnt out. It makes us miserable. It turns workplaces into emotional death.
Yeah. Just,
Look, worst of
well,
all, it
it's
makes
like
leaders pretend everything's
if
fine.
someone's
And it,
vulnerable, they will be more vulnerable in those kind of workplaces. You
yeah,
know, if and it's bad, isn't it? Like if you can we see if you go to work in that kind of state, you are likely to be targeted, and that's quite. I mean, I having worked somewhere that was quite toxic before, I had a secret place to go and cry, and then but just before I left, someone found me in my secret crying place. So, I had to leave because there was nowhere to hide anymore.
I mean, that's such a horrible story, Shirley. I feel for you. I want to just talk, actually, if I may, about some research from CIPD around this. Lots of public facing roles. I'm not just talking about being in politics, but lots of public facing roles. It takes a real toll because you've got to pretend you're fine all the time. And that's hard work. Smiling when you want to scream. That's called surface acting, and it leads directly to burnout, fatigue, disengagement. But we ask leaders, especially women incidentally, to suppress emotion, to package up grief, sterilize empathy. We don't want real feelings, do we? We want mannequins in suits. But vulnerability is not the enemy here. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's our most accurate measure of courage, in the words of Brené Brown. So either you want courage, try crying in the House of Commons under the full glare of media scrutiny, whilst holding one of the most pressurised jobs in government. That's braver than a load of stiff upper lips while the ship is quite clearly sinking. So I think we should call the media reaction out for what it actually was, which is bullying. plain and simple.
Yeah, but she didn't really exactly like sob either, did she?
No, a few
She
very
looked
genuine
more
tears.
like she
She showed
had
a little
been.
bit of vulnerability under pressure,
Yeah,
and the press kicked her
but
for it.
she could have actually just sort of, I don't know, like stubbed her toe on the seat in front or something.
No, it's a slightly different thing. But earlier this year, Millie Bobby Brown called out the media for this exact pattern:
Mm.
the obsessive scrutiny, dehumanizing commentary, and the policing of emotion. She said, I've been sexualized, I've been ridiculed, I've been judged since I was a child. You know, she's not an outlier. She's just being honest about it. And when Rachel Reeves cried, she broke character. And Westminster in the media that feeds off of it didn't really know how to react. Someone in power feeling something, how dare she?
Mm.
So it's not about professionalism. It's nothing to do with that. It's about power and punishing anyone who breaks the mask. It's not high-minded commentary. It's performative cruelty and it's dressed up as political analysis. Because this culture of ridicule, like, it doesn't make leaders stronger, just makes them hollow. It tells everyone out there watching, whatever you do, don't show emotion or they'll destroy you for it. You know, we talk a lot about bring your whole self to work. Well, so that's just a bullshit phrase if you're not allowed to bring the bit that has grief and upset and raw emotions with it. So, you know, all those people are just lining up to kick Rachel Reeves. I guess what I'd say to you is grow up and recognize just how outdated and how damaging that attitude actually is.
I think the big takeaway is that, you know, the markets looked at it and thought, we don't care.
Yeah.
We think she's a strong chancellor. And actually, she says she's going to stay in post, and we're happy with that. Nothing to worry about here, lads. So,
Yeah. So
you
the
know,
market's happy. Most of the British public seem to be happy. We've just got some people in the media who really just need to grow up. Stu, you found out some good stuff about arts in mental health hospitals.
Yeah, so UK mental health hospitals to receive more art as part of a new 3-year project. So I pulled this out of, it's called Art News. This was over the weekend. So a group of artists, Laquina McIver, Veronica Ryan, Peter Liversidge, amongst a few. There's about 50 creatives have been selected to transform mental health hospitals across the UK through a new initiative aimed at improving access to art in hospitals. So the project launched by Charity Hospital Rooms is set to bring site-specific works to NHS mental health facilities in Birmingham, Bristol, London and Yorkshire. So the initiative has received £600,000 grant from the Arts Council, that's the National Lottery Fund, with additional backing from the Hiscock Foundation as well. So Hospital Rooms co-founder Nima White has said that they spent considerable time researching in each site and showing that the artists chosen align with the needs and environments of the hospitals. So in Birmingham, where she grew up, and worked and led a creative workshop with young people there, they're going to get young people involved in, you know, art in Birmingham in the hospitals. So the next 18 months, the artists will install their works in various hospitals. And as part of this ambitious project, Hospital Rooms will also establish a national framework for equal access to arts in mental health services. This will involve the development of trauma-informed, autism-friendly and culturally competent creative programs tailored for each hospital. So the framework aims to foster deeper integration of arts into mental health care and will create, hopefully, scalable models for future projects right across the UK. They've worked on 44 awards so far, and the feedback has been really, really positive. So the initiative also looks to increase collaboration between museums and mental health hospitals, facilitating meaningful exchanges between institutions such as the Tate, the Hepworth, Wakefield, and various other, you know, art groups also. They're going to hold workshops at the venues, within the hospitals, build long-term partnerships, between the local institutions and mental health facilities. The benefit of art, people see art, that might encourage them to, like, you know, try something themselves, doesn't it? It's, you know, it's a talking point as well, isn't it? When you get a piece of art, everyone's got their own opinion. So people talk, don't they? Go, I like it, I don't like it, I think it's this, you know. So again, it's something for people to engage in and share in, isn't it? And, you know, again, we keep talking about community, you know, bringing the local community involved and so on, and not just having sort of, you know, mental health wards isolated, you know, in the community. Brings it in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. Brilliant. No, I love that story. Continuing in a similar vein ish.
Doctor in the camper van. So yeah, I just sort of picked up, you know, nice feeling stories this week. So this is from the Indie. This was over the weekend. This is about Gary Grant. He traded in his high pressure GP role for a life on the road. So far, he's visited countries like Qatar, Greece, and Bali since stepping away from his job. So he says after facing overwhelming stress and burnout as GP, decided enough was enough. So he sold his home, his car, and most of his belongings.
Wow.
Yeah, then he bought a converted minibus for 10 grand to travel the world and rediscover his sense of freedom.
I think it's really quite impressive, though. Like, one of them, because if you like think about what his life was before, you would say, oh, he was, you know, he was achieving, like, you know, the ideal life. But that's like the ideal life that we're told we should be. So you've got to go to university, get some amazing career, buy a house, all of those things. But actually, with a lot of those things, we sort of follow that pathway because it's what's expected of us. But really, you know, is there anything wrong with just living in a camper van? And
December 24, his GP surgery gave him some time off, and then during the break he realised how free he felt. So this led to a decision to quit. Since then, he's visited Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, Switzerland, and France. He's taken solo trips to Norway, Turkey, and Bali. Sometimes he takes his kids as well. And his adventures are funded by the sale of his possessions and some savings. Plans to work remotely in the future, although he's not really thought too much about that at the moment.
Good for Gary Grant. So I'm officially jobless, technically homeless, but spiritually employed and emotionally housed. Here's some astonishing new data for this week. Apparently, if you give people more time off work, they're happier. Who would have guessed? Pretty much everyone, I suppose. And now teams of scientists and researchers, they back their hunch hard enough to try it properly. And the result of that is that nearly 1,000 UK workers are moving permanently to a 4-day working week after the latest trial found, shock horror, that people are less stressed when they don't have to work 5 days a week. The trial was organised by the 4-Day Week Foundation and monitored by researchers at Boston College. It involved 17 organisations, including the British Society for Immunology and the National Union of Students. And it worked. 62% of people reported less burnout, 41% said their mental health improved, 45% said they were more satisfied with life, and I'm guessing 100% said, yeah, I don't have to wear trousers on Fridays anymore. No businesses collapsed. There was no fire, no chaos, no CEOs crying in toilets or buildings consumed by vines. In fact, productivity went up, sick days went down, staff stayed in jobs longer, and revenues increased by an average of 35%, which strongly suggests actually that the biggest threat to British productivity might be going to work.
so when they say 4-day week, is that like actually less hours on the same pay, or is it condensed hours?
So what you get is this idea of, yes, you just work 4 days, not 5. Now, well, if I can go on with this, you see, as we're getting dangerously close to the ancient practice of having a life, economists are starting to panic, and critics of the scheme say it could increase stress because there'll still be the same amount of work to do, which demonstrates just how easy it is to ignore data and miss the point if you've already made up your mind in advance. The idea behind this is because we've got our 5 days, we've got the work to do, but we can't maintain that level all the way through. We're not necessarily particularly productive for 5 days. If you give us 4 days, probably the same amount will be done because we've got higher energy levels, we're happier. So actually, that doesn't really matter.
I was listening on the radio, they were talking about this the other day, and they had a managing director, and they said, well, how are you making it work? And what he said was, we're looking at the things that really matter. So what things do we really need to achieve this week? And what things do we not really need to? So less meetings, setting goals at the start of the week, achievements, and then also everyone then buying into the agreement as a contract as well to say, look, we're going to get it all done, but we're going to get it done within the hours. So no one's took advantage of it. No one's got lazy or whatever. And as a result, also, like you just said, they became more productive as a result of it.
So do you have 4 really productive centered days rather than 5 days of up and down productivity?
Do you think it's like that trust as well, isn't it? Like I find, if you trust your staff, they do work better because actually most people, especially if you're somewhere where people have like trained for years to do what they do and they've been to university and stuff like that as well, it's like, or you've got years and years of experience working anywhere. Why can't you be trusted to do your job?
Absolutely. And, if you have good managers, if you have good people in your team, you should always leave good people to get on with the job. There's no need to micromanage them at all. So if you've got good people, like you said, with skill sets and experience, just leave them to get on with it.
Yeah.
You trust people, honestly, productivity, happiness, retention, that all goes up. But a lot of managers do not understand that.
No, there's a lot of pettiness and micromanaging, like you said. Actually, I found before, I can't do it in my new job now because I really have to be there every day. But I found when I condensed my hours once, because I was always like off late anyway. So instead, I just actually worked. I was paid to be there for the hours that I was already doing. So I ended up doing like 9-10 hour days and having an extra day off instead of just working like 5 9-hour days and just being really exhausted all the time.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's been studies like this, and even where it's been proved to be a success, a number of organisations have decided not to take this on, which I find absolutely bewildering. If you've got data that tells you working 4 days is actually working better for you than working 5, this generally, I think, comes down to the decision of a handful of people who just don't like the idea of it and just decide.
Trial it. They should all just trial it, and then if it doesn't work in certain places, it doesn't work. At least you gave it a go.
There, and one of the firms said they weren't going to go to a 4-day week, but they were going to go to a 9-day fortnight and make a concession towards it. So it's nice to see that people are at least thinking in some slightly different way. I'd like to do one more mental health story, I think, and then we'll look at some slightly different things. This one's really about the power of hobbies and links to Denmark's #1 secret to happiness.
Yeah, this is a business school professor, Marina Cooley. She went on a business trip to Denmark and she learnt the secret that Danes already know. Hobbies are key to a happy life. Shelley, do you have hobbies?
I learnt to crochet a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But I'm not very good at sticking. Like I'll suddenly get really into something, and then I decided I needed to make a cat basket for the floor because there's this area one of the cats keeps sleeping on the rug, and he's left this little dirty patch on it. So it's also not just a hobby; it's also useful.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. I think we cover that. So over the next 12 months, she's tried 17 different hobbies, ranging from baking, cold plunging, embroidery, golf, pottery, rock climbing. And she says the results were transformative. After a year of experimenting, she came away feeling stronger, braver, and more confident. And here's how. Number 1, She kicked her doom scrolling habit. I'd love to do that. Do you do that every night, everyone? Scroll social medias? No, you don't do that, Jim?
No, giving up on all that nonsense.
Yeah, Shelley?
I don't doom scroll so much. I do first thing in the morning, but just to sort of wake me up a little bit because it's all funny videos and things.
So she let go of her evening habit of double screening, and then realised she had more time than she thought. So she's saying with hobbies like painting or rock climbing, then you're just not worried about your phone. You're in the moment, feel less stressed, and you have more agency over your time. She learned to bookmark, joy for the future. She sort of always loved woodworking, but realised now's not the time. She's got small children. So she's like bookmarked that for the future. As we talked earlier, realise one person's work is another's stress relief. She's saying that for her, one of her triggers as her kid saying was for dinner. but her friend...
I can totally get that, actually.
But her friend sort of showed her baking and then said, it's not work, this is a way to decompress. So she started to enjoy baking and found it relaxing. So she then started to see what's for dinner as a bit of a hobby and, looking at in a new light. Number 4, she said, redefine self-care. So she then thought, okay, a useful role, have one hobby for your brain, one for creativity, and one to stay fit. So for her, that's Mahjong. Anyone know what that is?
Yes.
It's Chinese for 4 winds. It's a game played with tiles.
Okay. Home DIY and tennis. They're hers. So
I've only got one for creativity.
What's that? Is that your crochet?
Yeah, I don't think that's for the brain, is it?
Okay, maybe you can start Mahjong. Is that how you say it? Mahjong. Mahjong. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Number 5, she felt less lonely. As we know, the world is facing a loneliness epidemic. But one group of people she met throughout her year of hobbies weren't lonely, hobbyists, as she's saying, because hobbies bring people together, don't they? They bring people in the community and you become less isolated. You find your people, as Jim is sort of often keen on saying, you find your tribe. And then number 6, stopped dreading small talk. So all of a sudden she had something to talk about, rather than that sort of surface level, it's a lovely day out there or whatever. She could sort of, talk about what her hobbies were and, engage with like-minded people. She sort of found also that some of her friends were like, they said they were burned out and waiting to find balance before they could start a hobby. They almost didn't have time. But she's saying balance doesn't just show up. If you want balance, then you need to start the hobby. And she went on to say hobbies force you to set boundaries as a worker, a parent, and an individual. So hobbies, get a hobby.
Good. Actually, this isn't really a story about hobbies. It's about a woman reclaiming her time and her joy and her peace and finding her purpose, which is a wonderful thing. I want to do a science story because I know Shelley loves it when I do science stories. She gets to sound a nerd.
Have we got any updates on our long-running science story?
And the Ocean Treaty?
Yeah.
No further ratifications of the treaty this week. I'm afraid we remain 10 short of that title, that target we need. But I'm keeping a regular eye on it.
Have we got any plastic eating algae this week?
No. What we have got, and I think you'll like this, is you've got the Swiss doing what they do best. Precision engineering, but this time with no yodeling. And they've come up with solar panels for train tracks. Actual solar panels on the actual tracks where the trains go, which on the face of it sounds like a terrible idea if you've ever seen a train or stood near one. But somehow it works.
Why do the tracks need solar panels?
No, it's just a place to house solar panels. So they're called sunways, and they've developed panels that slot just neatly between the rails, like energy efficient Toblerones. And they're built to survive being regularly run over by high-speed trains, which I
That's
think is really
brilliant.
impressive. So the pilot project is a 100-meter stretch of panels that went live in April in a place called Bayeux in Neuchâtel. It's the first time anyone's installed solar panels on a live railway, which of course is the sort of thing you'd expect from Switzerland, where trains run like Rolex on espresso. If they roll it out across the full 5,000 kilometres of Swiss railways, then the panels could generate enough clean electricity to power 30,000 homes, all without paving over the Alps or upsetting someone in a chalet who thinks solar panels ruin the view of that one hill that they like. Other countries are now taking notice as well. France, South Korea, Canada, Indonesia, they're all keen. Which inevitably leads to the question, could we do this in the UK?
No.
Well,
We did
yes, in theory we could, but you're quite right, Stu, in practice. No, we'd announce it with great fanfare. We'd spend £10 million on a feasibility study.
But we
We'd
can't.
install the panel near Crewe and then cancel the whole thing.
We can't even build the track. So
No, and look, our trains, let's be honest, they don't run in rain or snow or, ironically, in sunlight or between Norwich and London for 6 months a year when it's replacement bus services all round. So the idea of solar-powered infrastructure does feel a bit ambitious. But look, I love this story because I think it's really smart.
Yeah.
Hopeful. It proves you don't need to glue yourself to anything or dig up half of Cornwall to fight climate change.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea, bit of engineering.
I think, I just like the idea of just using what's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the best thing, isn't it, really, about it?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's just covering stuff in solar panels that it'd be quite useful. I suppose they can do it because they haven't privatised every last bolt of their railway as well, which probably helps.
We've just become very bad in this country at being able to build things at a cost.
Don't talk down Britain, Stu.
Well, at cost that's realistic, and I think you just pointed to that, didn't you, Jim? It's like, you look at the HS2, all the money spent on feasibility studies and so on and so forth, and you look at our neighbours, don't you, in France, who've just recently completed a huge new improved rail track, at a tenth of the cost. Interesting in UK. Why can't we do that? Because we privatised everything? Not sure, but anyway. But for the countries who have got that infrastructure in place, what a really amazing, smart idea.
Stuart, occurs that you asked me about have we got little creatures eating plastic and stuff like that.
Yes,
we haven't, but Shelley has got a fabulous thing about tiny little creatures who gorge and they get fat and they help fight global warming.
This sounds right up my street.
Tell us all about these little guys.
They are in the ocean as well. So, I kind of stole Jim's thing this week. And, he nearly actually didn't have anything to talk about. He was thrown really badly by my thievery.
I tell you, I had to go looking at train tracks instead.
Yeah, just hoping an idea would come. Anyway, have you ever heard of Copepods?
Is it pronounced? I thought it was Copepod.
Oh.
Anyway, Copepods.
Well,
let's call the whole thing off.
How did you say that, Jim? Copepod.
You're putting too many pads in there.
Copepod.
But then
Copepod. You say it, Shelley. Copepod.
Copepod.
Copepods, yes. Tell us. Well, we've heard of them now, Shelley. What are they? Why should we care?
So they are part of a group of tiny creatures called zooplankton. And you probably heard of plankton.
Yeah,
and there's different kinds of plankton.
Yep.
They're sort of copepods. I really thought it was copepods. Zooplankton of food like krill and the copepods. So they are actually a kind of distant relative to crustaceans like lobsters and crabs. I looked up little images of them, and they're all see-through. You can see their undergarments.
Why have you brought them to our attention today?
Because they're sexy.
Can you put that? Put that on the Instagram show.
I will. So BBC News,
these sexy little creatures.
They're sexy little underwear that you can see through their sheer dressing gown. There's been research that revealed that they are responsible for locking away as much planet warming carbon as the annual emissions of about 55 million petrol cars. So without them, the impact on climate change would be about twice as much. It would be about twice as warm, I think. Well, would it be twice as warm? No, I don't think it'd be twice as warm, but it'd be twice as bad. Because if it'd be twice as warm, it would be about 60 degrees.
I think that would be probably more than twice as bad. Yeah. That'd be really... So if I understand this story correctly, Shelley, these Copepods, they gorge on this. They gorge on the carbon.
Yes,
they get all fat and sleepy, and that helps lower the effect of global warming.
They turn carbon dioxide into kind of a living, this living type of plankton. Anyway, the other.
Do you mean phytoplankton?
Phytoplankton.
Phytoplankton.
Yes, okay. Yes, okay, whatever. But anyway, the more superior zooplankton, they eat the phytoplankton. I feel like I've got a cold. And they sort of actually store up the energy of eating this. They store it into fat to keep them warm in the winter. And then they will descend really deep into the ocean during the winter with all of this carbon. It means that you take all of the carbon that would have otherwise gone into the atmosphere and take it about at least 500 meters below the surface of the ocean. And because it's then held down there, it takes so long for it to come back up. It could actually take centuries for this carbon to come, this CO2 to come back to the surface again.
So they nap for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And save the world. So they're like heroic versions of students.
They're like little hoovers.
Mother.
But yeah, they are at risk though, because people fish them and breed them. I think that was why. But also, it's also just if you damage the ecosystem of the oceans, it will damage this process as well, which David Attenborough did also pick up on in Oceans.
Well, we love David Attenborough. So it turns out that the planet's best hope isn't tech billionaires, it's a 4mm blob with a fat ass.
Well, yeah, with sexy underwear on.
I'd like to move on from tiny creatures to much bigger ones. Shelley, you've got a story about nature's most adorable existential crisis, the panda. And I do appreciate that you haven't had a lot of time to look at the in depth of this story.
I put all of my energy into Copepods, and they've taken that down 500 meters below the surface. Yes, I did find a very fascinating story about the giant panda this week, that there has been stem cell research that could save the giant panda. Giant pandas, they are no longer endangered, but they still remain vulnerable, because there's actually only 2,000 giant pandas in the wild, and 600 are living in zoos or protected habitats. So there has been stem cell research that's been done on other endangered animals that's been quite successful, but it was trying to find the right combination of like sort of the correct cells and the right environment to develop these cells in was quite difficult for pandas. So because what worked for say other creatures wasn't working for pandas. So there was this research is happening in China, and they managed to find out that if they use skin stem cells from giant pandas and had the right environment for it, that they could actually develop these cells. So the way I understand that it works is that they can try and use these cells to study biology of pandas in more detail, so that they can find ways of like protecting them genetically, because as there's actually quite a small number of pandas, it means that like it's sort of slightly like inbreeding. There's not enough genetic diversity for them. That's basically the purpose behind this. But yeah, they've had a breakthrough.
Fantastic. Well, we love that. I love anything that can help pandas, because you've got to love pandas. I mean,
have you seen those videos of like pandas falling out of trees? And
they're just the clumsiest things in the world, aren't they? I mean, they perpetually be trying to injure themselves. They won't breed. They're not really helping themselves. But I think it's great if we can do stuff to help them. Because
and they use stem cell therapy, don't they, for cancer? So it's about, when they destroy all the cells and then rebuild them, don't they? So it's basically the same science as that, isn't it?
One last story to finish off this week, and it's another breakthrough in medical science. I think this one's a biggie. Scientists in Sweden have developed a gene therapy that's helping people who are born deaf to start recovering their hearing. It's based on a faulty gene called OTOF. Doesn't OTOF sound like a shelving unit from IKEA? I think it does.
I thought it sounded like a healthy cereal.
OTOF.
Are you sure it's not OTOF?
Anyway, what it is the gene responsible for getting sound signals from your inner ear to your brain. If it doesn't work, then you're born with full hearing loss. So the researchers injected a working version of the gene directly into the cochlea. And every time I say that sentence, I can just hear, oh, matron, in my head. And I assume it was all done in a very calm, clinical, very Swedish way, not with a turkey baster full of nanobots and a bucket of wet wipes. Still, imagine being told, good news, we can restore your hearing, we just need to inject something deep inside your skull. Anyway, they trialled it with 10 patients aged between 1 and 24. After 6 months, most of them had recovered some hearing, and one girl, 7 years old, she could hold proper conversations within 4 months, which is, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? Although once she heard her first influencer say, a lot of you have been asking about my skin care routine, she might have wished for silence again. On average, people's hearing improved from 106 decibels, that's louder than a power drill, to 52 decibels. So a hell of an improvement, and that's just the beginning. The scientists behind it say that OTOF, just the start, they're already working on therapies for other, more common genetic causes of deafness. So it sounds quite futuristic, but it's happening right now. It's not just science, it's human. It's kids hearing their parents' voices for the first time. It's people connecting. It's conversations happening. It's genuinely life-changing stuff. And I think that's all from Everything's Fine, probably the podcast equivalent of a Copepod, slightly bloated, mostly asleep, but secretly saving the planet. Let's recap. We found out the Swiss are laying solar panels between train tracks. Feels like a stunt devised by someone who once built a Scalextric and thought, what if this was national infrastructure? We also discovered that 4-day weeks are good for your health. Hobbies are a gateway drug to happiness, and art is finally being taken seriously in places with broken vending machines. And crying at work is fine, especially when your chances of the exchequer holding back tears and being bullied by Piers Moron. Rachel Reeves didn't crack, she's just very briefly humaned. Next week, we're diving into the surprisingly therapeutic world of being a sports fan, even if, say, your team spent the last season defending like a group of hungover Labradors. And on that topic, we'll be joined by one or two Harlequin supporters who have turned community building into a lifestyle. And they're going to talk with us about joy, heartbreak, and how shouting, come on, you Queens, into a £7 pint of Guinness is, medically speaking, self-care. If you enjoyed the episode, or if you just want to reward us for talking about Copepods, hit follow, Give us a like, leave us a review using only panda-based metaphors, please. We're on all the social media platforms except LinkedIn because we can't be asked to pretend this was a valuable leadership insight about resilience. And we're on all podcast platforms except Amazon Music because is spreading happiness and joy without making a profit really a Bezos type project? Not sure. Anyway, until next time, keep crying, keep hobbying, keep hoping, and remember, even if your train's delayed, your government's beige, and the only creature fixing the climate change is 4mm long with sexy see-through underwear, everything's still fine.